Good morning again, everyone. And once again, to those of you joining us online, anyone who's joined us since the beginning of Mass or is maybe watching the homily, it's great to have you with us. I'm sure you're like me in this, that I can't stand bullies. Bullies should always be resisted. And perhaps that conviction has shaped some of your feelings this past week as we've witnessed historical events that have already reshaped our world. We've seen for the first time since the Second World War a full-scale invasion of one sovereign nation by another, and the tragic impact that that has had already on thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives. I'm not sure how you feel about this. I know for myself, I've gone through a whole array of emotions. I've felt fear. You know, we've been relatively secure for the last 30 years, at least in the Western world. We thought the global community was moving in a particular direction and all was good. Perhaps you have a sense of disorientation because what does this mean for us? That the path that I thought we were going to take, the path forward seemed obvious and now we're not sure what's going to happen. Perhaps there's a sense of confusion or even disbelief. Disbelief that he actually went for it. And by he, obviously, I mean Putin, because I don't believe this is a war of the Russian people, although it may have been committed in the name of the Russian people, at least at this point. Disbelief that this actually happened. It wasn't just saber rattling or a chess move to get more power. And perhaps if you're like me, one of the overwhelming feelings I have is that of powerlessness. Bullies are to be resisted, right? That was programmed into all of us, and yet we feel powerless. This weekend was supposed to be the fourth week of a 4-week preaching series on the theme of intentional hospitality and how intentional hospitality plays a key role in helping a parish to be renewed. Hospitality at every level of a parish. After the news of this week, I thought about abandoning this theme and changing the focus of my homily, but then I realized that rather than focusing on something that we feel powerless over, perhaps we should focus on something that we can actually do, in an area that we can actually make a difference. And perhaps we can make our corner of the world a bit more of a better place, more loving, more friendly, more hospitable. So, if it's okay with you, I'm going to preach on this topic. What do you think? It's not like you had a choice. This is the fourth week, as I said, and 3 weeks ago, in the gospel, we saw Jesus telling the apostles to leave the comfort of the shallow water and to go out into the deep. And we made this point that intentional hospitality will always take us out of our comfort zones. And then the following week, Deacon David preached his famous homily that everyone remembers because of the sanitize commandment. And he made this central point that if you're a parishioner, you are a host. If you consider yourself to be a member of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, when you come to Mass on a weekend, you're not a guest. You are a host. Now, we have guests in our midst today. But we, who are parishioners, are the hosts. Last week, we made this point that hospitality is about welcoming people into a community, not just into a building, as important as that is. And my hope today is that when you leave here, if you remember anything, it's this point. That if we are intentional about hospitality, our labor will not be in vain. It will make a difference. It does make a difference. It will lead us to be a parish that bears much fruit. And that's an image that Jesus uses in the gospel. We find ourselves in the Gospel of Luke towards the end of a section where Jesus is preaching his first big sermon. Now, in Matthew's Gospel, it's called the Sermon on the Mount. People refer to the version in Luke's Gospel as the Sermon on the Plain. Plain. Not the one flown by Pontius Pilate. Oh, come on. The Sermon on the Plain. And in this part of the sermon, we have a number of different sayings of Jesus. And among them is the reference to the trees and the fruit. He says this: a good tree does not produce bad fruit, and a bad tree does not produce good fruit. If the tree is healthy, it will bear fruit. If a parish is healthy, it will bear fruit, the fruit of life. It will grow. If a parish is not bearing fruit, is not growing, is not giving and bringing forth life, it's because it's not healthy. And healthy parishes around the world are parishes that bear fruit through intentional hospitality. Intentional hospitality is a key part of what makes the difference. And why shouldn't it? Because hospitality is ultimately about loving people. Hospitality is an act of love, and love always bears fruit. In the second reading today, we heard from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, and he writes to the parishioners in the church in Corinth. And he calls them to be focused and intentional about living the Christian life so that they can continually get better at it. He says this: therefore, my beloved, be steadfast and immovable. Think about those two words, steadfast and immovable. Then that's about intentionality. Then he says, always excelling. If you're good at something, get better at it. We should always be striving to do better. Sometimes in parishes, we compare ourselves with perhaps the church next door, and we say, oh, well, we're doing okay. But the Lord says, strive to be good, and if you're good, strive to excel, to be better. Why? Because, he says, you know that in the Lord, your labor is not in vain. It will not be in vain. If we strive to excel in hospitality, not just to be good at it, to excel, our labor will not be in vain. So how can we excel at intentional hospitality? Well, I want to share with you perhaps it's a bit of a dream of what it can be, but there are concrete goals that we're looking at achieving over the next couple of months. And today I also want to put before you a call to action. And I've divided these goals into three categories. The first category is hospitality at Sunday Mass. I just want to quickly go through some of our goals. I can't do it with much detail, but hopefully it'll be okay. The first goal is what we're doing in the foyer. Now, when you came in today, you may have noticed this is kind of weird. What, are they building something? Are they tearing something down? There was a glass wood partition that we are in the process of removing so that we can have an open space, and we can also put doors at the entrance so that we can have soundproofing between the entrance space and the main church space. Now, it's taken us longer than we thought. We thought it would be finished by the time I was giving this homily. That was the plan. But we ran into a snag. You see, the builders or the construction workers found asbestos in the wall. Now, there's no need for concern. We have specialists dealing with it. It will be dealt with properly. It's only a health concern when it's disturbed and put into the air. And so we are working on it, but it's going to take us a bit longer. But when it's done, it's going to give us a fairly big space compared to what we had. And in that space, we're going to build a welcome booth, a desk that will have parishioners at every single Mass at that desk, ready to engage people, take inquiries, answer any questions. And that will be at every single Mass. We hope to have hospitality team members at the front doors and the inside doors. Heck, imagine even having hospitality members in the parking lot. What do you think of that? Okay, maybe not in February. But imagine if our hospitality, if we excelled so much that as soon as people drove into our parking lot, they were greeted and helped. Imagine having, for instance, an emergency first responder at every Mass, and that's just someone who has some background in medical training in case something was to happen. I've seen this done at other parishes, and it's done very, very well. Imagine if all of our parishioners come with the identity of being hosts and act accordingly. Imagine, once again, after Mass, being able to have a coffee social. Do you remember coffee socials? Our online presence. We already have several parishioners for every online Mass who greet people, but we would want to grow that and improve that, as well as growing and changing our website to be more friendly and welcoming to those on the outside. So those are some of the ideas that we're looking at and some of the goals that we have. Another category is around how we welcome new parishioners into our community. And I want to share with you something we plan to do that I've done in previous parishes, and it makes a difference. It bears fruit. And that is to have a special event for new parishioners. We would have, for instance, a reception every 2 months where people who have indicated an interest, a desire to join our parish, have given us their contact information. We would invite them and put on, this is what I did in my last parish, a wine and cheese reception. We'd welcome them, give them information about the parish, give them a couple of glasses of wine, and sign them up for all kinds of stuff. It works, I tell you, it works. Or something like that, you know. Imagine being able to give them a welcome package. Imagine being able to follow that up with phone calls, to be truly intentional about hospitality, not just welcoming people into a building, welcoming them into our community and excelling at it. And a third category is to provide people easy steps to grow and get involved. Easy steps, for instance, for people to share their gifts and get involved. If you've ever been new to a parish, it's one thing to come to Sunday Mass. Sometimes it's a very different thing to penetrate the veil, to get involved in something outside of Mass. We want to make that easy for people, to provide easy steps. We want to make it easy for people to grow spiritually. No matter where they are in their own spiritual life presently, we want to provide easy steps for people. We want people to find a supportive community, to give them easy steps to get involved so that we can do away with Catholics Anonymous in our parish forever. So what's the homework this week? You know I always give homework. Well, my hope is this, that many parishioners are going to sign up. We have a sign-up sheet at the entrance to the church, and we have one online. And already this weekend, we've got close to 20 people who have already signed up that I know of, which is amazing. But imagine this: if we had, imagine we had 60, 70, 80 people willing to serve in the variety of teams in hospitality. You see, the more people involved, the less the weight is on any one person. You know, one of the great problems in most parishes is that most of the stuff is done by only a few of the people. And sometimes even when you call for people to sign up like this, it's the same people who are already doing everything are the ones who sign up. If you're already doing everything, we don't want you to sign up. But imagine if we had enough people so that it wasn't heavy. And we had various teams. And here's what we want to do. Give us your information, and in a couple of weeks we'll have a follow-up meeting, and we want to work with you to say, which team would you like to serve on? Where are your interests? What are your gifts? How can we do this? And so that we can begin to build this whole hospitality culture in our parish. So that's what I'm hoping is going to happen after this weekend. Exactly what you would do would be determined later. You see, we may be powerless in the face of Putin's war on the Ukraine, but we are not powerless to resist inhospitality of a far lesser kind, to be sure, here at home by being intentional about our hospitality. By March 21st, all restrictions are gone. We're going to have a lot more people. And our world is hungry for the gospel. There is a spiritual hunger. We will have guests. The question is, are we going to be ready to welcome them? Good trees bear good fruit. And if we are intentional about hospitality, our labors will not be in vain.